when you're building out your team, what are the key characteristics, traits, skill sets that you look for?
I think it depends on the stage of the team and what you're hiring for. In my experience, every time I've been hiring, it's been that go-to-market team. So I really need self-starters, people that can put themselves out there, that have maybe shown some experience in terms of dealing with challenges. But for me, what is more important is what did they do with those challenges? What were the outcomes? So I often ask for examples if I were speaking to them to try and vet their experience and see if it's going to be a good fit for my team and what I expect in terms of them being a high performer. And then leaning on that accountability. If they've made mistakes in the past, I want to see that people are not afraid to tell me about their mistakes and what did they do with those learnings to apply to the next challenge they had, or maybe a next career. Those are things that I really look for. To be honest, I don't really dive into numbers. If you're dealing with someone that's come from a startup environment or big tech, I would of course ask them their quotas and make sure that they are aware of what their goals were and what they had to do to achieve them. But I've hired people that were hitting 200% of their quota month on month, quarter on quarter, and I've also hired people that really couldn't bring in a single deal in 6 months because of circumstances that they were facing. So I really dig deep. I try and understand what those challenges were and what did the candidate do with those challenges to take their opportunity forward or give feedback to the organization. Those things are really important. And I think that goes down to accountability and being an entrepreneur, which is a self-starter.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because one of the challenges, and it's a double-edged sword, is a lot of hiring teams are asking about your quota attainment. What was your percentage against quota? And I want to see how you've achieved every quarter for the last two years. Like, it's really just the icing on the cake, because the reality is maybe they're lying.
Yeah.
Right? It's really difficult to validate whether they're truthful or not, and they're a great marketer saying that they've overachieved. But also that there are circumstances where it wasn't the reps or the individual's fault for not hitting their number. A lot of the times companies have got leadership changes, the quota changes, the market changes, etc.
Yep.
I think it's a leading indicator, but really being able to look for those underlying aspects
Absolutely.
is really important as well. Yeah, and just to go one more step on that, do you have any golden questions that you ask as part of an interview process where you're just really able to extract information that is going to help you?
Yeah, good question. I must think of it. So I actually go into my interviews quite conversationally.
Yeah.
I don't really have a set sort of template of questions that I like to ask. So it really depends where we go in terms of the conversation. If I feel that we're going more into a conversation type of interview, that to me is normally a good sign, provided that the candidate is still quite impactful, gets to the point and really shares their message. But if I feel like I need to get more into the questions in terms of guiding them, I always lean back to challenges, success stories, what have you done? So I dive a little bit deeper into maybe a previous product they sold or what it was like. And then I ask them, so, I want to hear like the biggest deal failure. Like, tell me which deal didn't work. I really want to understand why. They can like white label it, of course, and not share to like client details, for example, but I really want to understand what were the challenges, and then I would pause them and say, right now, I want to understand that challenge. Where did it go wrong? Why do you think? Was it, if they say sales execution, what was the learning from that? And did you apply that learning in the future deal? So I would hope that the candidate could kind of give me that full picture, because then I can see that like intellectual curiosity in themselves, that self-understanding, how do they apply their challenges. Sometimes candidates need a bit more guidance in terms of how do we ask those questions, or how do I get them to the answer that I'm looking for. So that's normally how I frame my interviews. It's maybe not as classic as normal interview structures, but that for me is important.
I think it's a great way. I'm not a big fan of your typical interview type questions.
Yeah.
Is you can extract so much, but I love your additional layer. I love that example of tell me your biggest failure, because you can learn so much. Was it their fault? Was it not? Did they take accountability? Did they learn? Exactly. Are they coachable?
Yeah, and I think it also sometimes, if you are a bit concerned about candidates, maybe reason for leaving their current company, sometimes it could be because of a misclick with management, or maybe they're actually an underperformer. But how they answer that question usually paints a bit of a picture for me of what's actually going on and why they're looking to maybe move on or find their next step. So it's a bit of I've got to trust my guts when I get into those sort of conversations. But if the candidate has that, that intellectual curiosity, they have the ambition, they're an entrepreneur, self-starter, they normally answer to it quite, I think, clearly in their response.